Hey guys, welcome to Movie ReRatings. Today we're going to be talking about Jurassic World. Remember that we here at Movie ReRatings don't worry about the review. There's other people who will do that. We're just going to break down the elements that are appropriate for certain people to see and give it a new rating. So today let's start talking about sex and nudity in this film. Overall, Jurassic World focuses more on scaring the audience than trying to sensualize the characters. So, the sex and nudity is at a minimum. The most that we see in most of this film are a few jokes involving previous encounters and previous dates between certain characters. But there's no nudity, there's no sex scene. So let's go ahead and talk about what's really important, the violence. This movie is violent, and it is a little disturbing and super scary, especially for younger audiences. In my particular screening, I got to watch it with probably a 10-month-old baby. I would not recommend this movie for anyone under the age of 1 year for sure. It features lots of dinosaurs eating people. Some of these people are viewed as they're eaten. It's a little bit disturbing, it's a little scary, it's bloody, and if you're not going in knowing this, you're going to be surprised by how violent it is. Now most of us have seen the previous Jurassic Parks, and we already know that people are going to die, and people die in this movie. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the profanity in this movie. There isn't a lot of profanity. Most of the swearing happens between one or two characters. Most of them are pretty clean when they're speaking, and those few characters don't swear very often. Most of the themes in the movie deal with being attacked and eaten alive, but there are a few underlying themes that are occurring. For example, militarizing dinosaurs to attack people, or there's a divorce that's occurring in this movie. These themes really aren't the focus of the movie, so we're going to go ahead and leave that as a pretty tame thematic movie. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about illicit drugs, alcohol, and we'll talk a little bit about smoking as well. In this movie, it really avoided anything that would be even noticeable. As I watched the film and as I was paying attention, I didn't notice anybody who was smoking or drinking anything except for soda. Okay, we're finally going to finish this up with just kind of a vague topic, and I feel like it really applies to a Jurassic World movie, and that's disturbing imagery. Now, when people are eaten by dinosaurs, I consider that disturbing imagery. It's scary, you see blood, you see people eaten, you see limbs hanging out of dinosaurs' mouths. This is a graphic movie in some ways. If you are trying to avoid seeing things like that, this movie has quite a bit of extremely gruesome and scary scenes. A lot of it's cut scenes, so you hear the crunching of the dinosaur eating the human, but there are a few scenes that are shockingly violent and a little bit scary, especially for younger viewers. Alright, so let's give this a final breakdown. Using my special rating system, we're going to go ahead and break it down based on those previous topics we talked about. Because this movie's so tame with sex and nudity, and the only thing that really occurs throughout are a few sexual jokes, which are in and of themselves pretty obvious what they're talking about, we're going to go ahead and give it a 5. Now this isn't a strong rating for sex and nudity, and there is no sex or nudity, but because they talk about it so obviously, we're going to go ahead and give that a pretty average grade. Now let's talk about the profanity. We discussed this earlier. There isn't strong language, and when there is language, it only occurs in very few places. We're going to give this a 3. Now, if we talk a little bit about the violence, we know there's a lot of violence in this movie. We'll toss that up to an 8. Finally, let's keep going into drug and substance abuse. We talked about this earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and put it at a 2. Finally, let's talk a little bit about the disturbing imagery, because we know that there is disturbing imagery. I'm going to go ahead and put this at the highest rating, up with violence, and give it an 8. Now, I feel like one of the things we overlook a lot, especially when we use the MPAA, is the thematic elements that occur in the movie. For example, if we talk about Jurassic World, most of the themes have to do with dinosaurs attacking. That's kind of what the plot's about. However, there's other themes that we discussed earlier, but they're pretty tame for the most part. If we discuss the violence and disturbing imagery, the themes are pretty tame, so we're going to give that a 5. Alright, using some math that I've come up with, let's give it an overall grade. The final grade that I'm going to give Jurassic World is a 6. A 6 means it's pretty appropriate for most audiences. However, parents should be warned that when taking younger children to Jurassic World, be aware that there is violence and there is some gruesome imagery and it's scary. But for older audiences, it should be completely appropriate.